Welcome to the winter solstice, the 21st of June, the middle of the deep, dark winter in Perth. I've just got back from Melbourne. Today's Wednesday, 21st of June. It's the winter solstice, the shortest day in the Southern Hemisphere. And just got back from Melbourne for the last 2 days, been over there running 2 workshops. Some great businesses, had a really good time. And we really moved their strategy and their effectiveness forward, which was cool. In one of the workshops, one of the leadership team members said to me, and we've been working together for maybe a year or two, and he said, look, there's a little bit of distrust within my team, i.e. within his team. There's a bit of a feeling, I think, that people think that if we're recording KPIs, that means that we don't trust them. He said, why don't they just trust us to do our job? What if people are saying, you know, why do we need key performance indicators? Why do we need key performance indicators? Why do we need these numbers to be measured to prove that we're doing our job? Don't they trust us? Why don't they just trust us to do our job? Well, I explained to him that we do trust them, and that's why we give them the numbers to be able to make their own decisions on how they get to those numbers and what they do with their time. What matters is the results, not the activities that they do. Micromanaging is about very closely managing every activity that every person does because you don't trust them. Managing to results is about saying, in your job, this is what I want. I want you, for example, to create 51 widgets or to sell 100 items or whatever number you need to do. And then how you get there is up to you. That's the difference, because I'm trusting you to get to that number. I don't need to micromanage all of your activities to know every single thing that you're doing. You get to that number and we'll be good. If you're close to that number, like a little bit under, you know, I'm going to try to help you and coach you to get you to achieve that number, and we're going to try to figure out why. I think that you're the right person for the job from the outset. So I put it to you that the introduction of KPIs is about trust. KPIs, when you give someone KPIs, you're trusting them to do the job rather than micromanage. Now, I'm not necessarily talking about introducing government KPIs, and I'm not necessarily talking about being in a large enterprise business. And the way that we build KPIs is we really say we need to have 2 KPIs per role, not many more. Because have you ever been to a job interview and they've said, well, look, here's what we need you to do. We need you to do this and 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 this. We've got these 15 KPIs that we need you to do. Well, which one of those is most important? If I do 10 of those KPIs and I fail at 5, do I still get to keep my job? If I do 5 and I fail at 10, do I still get to keep my job? But more importantly, which of those 15 KPIs that they're setting is the one that matters most? Which is the one that will get me a promotion? Or if I only did 1 and I did it really, really, really well, or maybe 2, which are the 2 that would get me to keep my job and maybe even be more successful if I focused all of my time on those 2 and forgot about the others? So KPIs are the result of trust. KPIs are the tools that enable you to do your job. You might be a great pilot, but if you're a great pilot with a really good dashboard that gives you all of the information to say that you're actually at 40,000 feet and what speed you're doing and everything else, well, that's good. That's telling you that you've got the information to do your job. So KPIs work in a trusted environment. KPIs work when you have trust. An absence of trust creates a bureaucracy, and the bureaucracy needs middle managers to micromanage every detail just to make sure that people arrive at work. I'm not so much worried what time you arrive at work and what time you go, but if your job is to create 51 widgets and you do that, that's great. That's what we want. KPIs work best in an environment of accountability, not an environment of responsibility. So what's the difference between accountability and responsibility? Well, responsibility, many people can be responsible for something, but only one person can be accountable for something. So if there's one person, to use that metaphor, if there's one person who is accountable for making widgets, and that person is accountable to make 51 widgets every day, and nobody else is accountable, therefore that accountability lies only with that person, that means that the business can rely on that person and trust that person to make those 51 widgets. If some people make widgets and some people don't, some do a little bit, and the output that we'd like to get is 51 widgets, well, who is the person who is accountable for that? Who is the person who is completely in control of that? That's the difference between accountability and responsibility. One person is accountable, multiple people can be responsible. So when someone has a job, it's a contract between the business and the employee. So the business is saying, I'm going to pay you X amount of money to be employed here. And the other side of the contract is the employee saying, I'm going to do the work that is outlined that I need to do and the things that I need to do. So that's when it works really, really well. But what is it that the person's doing? Are they providing hours? Are they providing skilled hours, or are they there to provide results? Well, what the business needs is results and outcomes, because a business is really just a group of people who are all doing their little bit to make sure that customers get what they need as efficiently and as effectively as possible. So that means that each person needs to be as efficient and effective as possible. And then when everybody is, the customer gets what they want, the business can be successful and make profits and reinvest to grow. KPIs then give an individual the clarity in what is expected of them in that contract and in that role, and the confidence that if you're told you need to make 51 widgets every single day and you're making 51 widgets every single day, you shouldn't be surprised by anything else. Like, you are meeting the commitment that's expected of you as a part of that contract to the business, because I can be pretty certain the business is going to keep on paying the employee no matter what. Obviously excluding other things that could happen. But when they're engaged, the person's going to get paid. So in terms of one's credibility, if you know and are very, very clear what you need to achieve, the other side of that is to be able to say, I'm making my 51 widgets or whatever it is every single day and I'm contributing. People can always say, well, look, you don't understand, Brad. My job's more complex than that. And that's good. Everybody's job is complex and everyone's got 100 things to do. But how do you prioritize? The KPIs should help you to prioritize what is the most important thing that you've got to get done. Where do I need to focus? If you've got 10 things to do, which do you do first? You do the thing that you probably feel most comfortable with or that you like doing first as a human. It's human nature. This helps us to prioritize. What do I need to do first to help to get the numbers that I need to achieve? Because humans cannot simultaneously do 15 things at once in terms of those 15 KPIs. Humans need to focus their energies in one area to get the best output, to be as effective and as efficient as possible. And then if you have a set of KPIs, your manager, their job is not to not trust you around those KPIs, but to trust you around those KPIs, to trust that you'll deliver them, and then if you're not delivering them, to support you. The job of a manager is to support the people who are under them to achieve what they need to achieve. Not to belittle them, not to get angry at them, simply to support them to get to their numbers. That's the job of a manager. Uber CEO Travis Kalanick has resigned today after the weight of problems in the company has pushed 5 key investors to demand his resignation. I feel for Travis. His parents died recently in a boating accident. It's terrible. He's had to take some time off to recover from that. It's awful. But the culture that's developed inside Uber is not acceptable. A lot of the trouble started to really surface in the media when an engineer called Susan J. Fowler wrote a 3,000-word blog post that revealed how one of her managers had sexually propositioned her over the internal company web chat on her first day. So her manager propositioned her on her first day. And then how, when she'd reported it to upper management, that they did nothing about it. And in fact, what they said was, upper management told me that he was a high performer and they wouldn't feel comfortable punishing him for what was probably just an innocent mistake on his part. But the problem was, as we've learned over time, is that this was endemic of many of the cultural problems that are at Uber. And if you've done any reading around this, there's been a lot of very similar examples. In managing people, people can say it's really, really hard to manage staff, but I put it to you that I don't think that it's as hard as some people make out. What you need is a simple system to manage their performance, so their productivity, because we need people to only do 2 things. We need them to be productive and we need them to adhere to our behavioural expectations. So, as happened at Uber, that's not really acceptable. So, in order to manage people, we need a productivity measure, as was outlined earlier on around key performance indicators. We need to know that people are productive in the role, and we need to be able to measure that so that we know they're doing a good job. And then secondly, we need to know that they're aligning with the behavioural expectations of the company. Now, we call those core values, and those core values really are a should and shouldn't. The core values tell us what we hold dear as a company, what's important to us. I would easily take criticism that sexually propositioning a new employee who is under your care wouldn't be within anyone's core values. That's completely inappropriate, and we can agree with that. However, most people have, even if they have some kind of metric to measure the productivity of people, they don't really have a metric to measure the behavioural expectations of people. So when the Uber staff member had reported to her manager, they fell into the trap that so many people fall into, and that is, this person is a high performer, we can't let them go. So the only way that they're judging the success of people is around the productivity. They're not saying that there's an alignment with the behavioural problem. So that means that if you take that to the extreme, this person could do literally anything from a behavioural perspective. They could walk around the office nude if they're still making their numbers. And whilst that's an extreme, in many companies there are many people who no one wants to talk to because their behavioural attributes are so inappropriate, their cultural alignment with the rest of the team is so wrong, but they make the numbers and that's the only mechanism that management have to go by. So what I'm suggesting is that there must be two tools to manage people. Number one is the behavioural or cultural alignment, which I grant is a softer measure, but we can coach people to help them to understand if they're not too far off or where they're not working. And then number two is the productivity of the individual. So management is easy. You need to have people productive and you need to measure that. And you need people who are aligned with the culture of the business that needs to be documented and understood by everyone so that we know what the behavioural expectations of people are. Uber, which has a valuation of $68 billion, gross bookings have doubled to $20 billion in the last year. Their revenues were $6 billion last year and they lost almost $3 billion. It says they've got a very strong and healthy business. But it's not strong and healthy if the culture and the understanding of what's acceptable and what isn't and the core values is fundamentally broken. That's not a strong business. That's a business that needs to evolve out of that. And it's not easy to change the culture of a business. You can't go in with a magic wand and think that you're going to be able to do an assessment or set a new set of rules or anything like that. This is really hard work to change, especially it's hard to change when it's so bad as it is at Uber. Uber is really a case study in how not to manage the culture of a business. Even though they had an outstanding strategy, again, the culture has proven that you need to have both a great strategy and a great culture to be successful.